The alien rescue ships floating safely in space watched their monitors with growing amazement and confusion. Hours had passed since the containment failure at Kepler-7, and the station was still intact. More importantly, the human crew was still alive and apparently working with the escaped creatures instead of being destroyed by them. Dr. Lisa Martinez had spent the last 2 hours in direct communication with the Void Stalker, using the electromagnetic pattern system that Amy Foster had developed. What started as simple signal exchanges had grown into something resembling actual conversation. The creature was not only intelligent, but seemed eager to share information about itself and its species. Captain Jake Sullivan opened a communication channel to the alien ships. "This is Kepler-7 to all vessels. The situation is under control. All escaped specimens are secure and cooperating with station personnel." The response came immediately from the Zephyrian Council ship. "Impossible. Void Stalkers do not cooperate. They consume and destroy. Your crew must be dead and the creature is using their communication systems." Jake smiled and activated the visual feed from Section 7, where Lisa could be seen standing just a few feet away from the Void Stalker. The creature was floating peacefully in the dark matter simulation field, occasionally extending appendages toward Lisa in what looked like friendly gestures. "As you can see, Dr. Martinez is very much alive and has established contact with the specimen," Jake said calmly. The crystalline entity ship broadcast next, its translation producing sharp, anxious tones. "This defies all known data about Void Stalker behavior. How are you still functional?" Lisa's voice came through the communication system as she addressed the alien observers. "Because we're not treating it like a monster. We're treating it like what it actually is, an intelligent being that was trapped in an environment it couldn't survive in." She gestured to the Void Stalker, which had learned to respond to human hand signals over the past few hours. "This creature isn't from our dimension or anything like our normal space. Imagine if you were suddenly transported to a place where you couldn't breathe, couldn't move properly, and everything around you felt wrong. You might act aggressively too, especially if everyone who saw you immediately tried to capture or kill you." The plasma being ship's transmission was filled with static from their emotional agitation, but the historical records show Void Stalkers destroying entire colonies. "How do you explain that?" Lisa had been thinking about this exact question. "I've been reviewing those incident reports. In every case, the Void Stalkers appeared near inhabited worlds during dark matter storms or dimensional anomalies. They were probably lost, trying to find their way back to their home dimension. When they encountered hostile responses from local populations, they defended themselves." Pete Harrison's voice came through the intercom from the engineering section. "I've been working with the Crystal Hunter in Section 12. It's actually been helping me repair some of the damage from the power failure. These creatures have an amazing understanding of crystalline structures and energy flow." Danny Rodriguez reported from his location near the outer hull. "The Shadow Wraith figured out how to open the airlock safely. It's been floating outside the station in the vacuum, and it looks completely at peace out there. I think it just wanted to get back to space." Jake looked at the communication display showing all the alien ships. "The difference is in how our species evolved. Most of your peoples developed on stable worlds with predictable environments and clear predator-prey relationships. Humans evolved on a world full of dangerous creatures that we learned to understand and work with instead of just fighting." Lisa continued the explanation while keeping one eye on the Void Stalker, which seemed to be listening to the conversation with interest. "On Earth, we shared our world with creatures that could kill us easily. Bears, wolves, big cats, venomous snakes, sharks. But instead of trying to destroy them all, we learned to coexist. We studied their behavior, understood their needs, and found ways to live alongside them. Some of our most dangerous predators became our closest companions," Amy Foster added from the communication station. "Wolves became dogs. We learned to track and hunt alongside cats. We even learned to work with animals that most species would consider impossible to approach." The Zephyrian Council ship transmitted again, its signal showing signs of deep confusion. "But Void Stalkers are not Earth animals. They are interdimensional predators with psychic abilities." Jake nodded. "True, but the principle is the same. Every creature, no matter how dangerous, has needs and motivations. Instead of assuming it wants to kill us, we tried to understand what it actually wants." Lisa walked closer to the Void Stalker, demonstrating the trust she had built with the creature. "This individual has been trying to tell us about its species for months. They're not predators in the way we understand the term. They're explorers, scientists in their own way. They travel between dimensions studying different forms of reality. The creature extended several appendages toward Lisa, and she responded by holding out her hand. The appendages didn't touch her directly but seemed to scan or examine her in some way that didn't require physical contact. The Void Stalkers get lost sometimes when dimensional barriers shift, Lisa continued. When they end up in our reality, everything feels wrong to them. The physics are different, the energy patterns are wrong, and they can't find their way home. They become desperate and sometimes dangerous because they're scared and confused. Amy had been analyzing the communication patterns from the Void Stalker. It's been trying to send us star charts and dimensional coordinates. I think it's been asking for help getting home this entire time. The alien ships fell silent for several minutes as they processed this information. Everything they thought they knew about the galaxy's most dangerous creatures was being turned upside down by a handful of humans who had refused to panic. Finally, the crystalline entity ship transmitted again. If what you say is true, this changes everything. Our entire approach to dangerous species may be fundamentally flawed. Jake smiled as he looked at his crew, who were calmly working with creatures that had terrified the galaxy for centuries. That's exactly what we're saying. Fear makes everything more dangerous. Understanding makes everything possible. The Void Stalker had begun moving in what Lisa now recognized as excitement. Through the electromagnetic communication system, it was sending rapid bursts of information about its home dimension and its people. For the first time in months, the galaxy's most feared predator had hope of returning to where it belonged. And the humans who had shown it kindness instead of fear were about to help it find its way home. The final containment field around the Void Stalker flickered and died with a sound like breaking glass. Lisa Martinez stood in the observation room, watching as the creature that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries stepped free from its prison. Instead of running like every instinct told her to, she stayed perfectly still and observed. The Void Stalker emerged slowly, its dark form shifting and flowing like liquid shadow. It stood about 8 feet tall when it held a stable shape with appendages that looked like a cross between tentacles and claws. Parts of its body seemed to exist in dimensions that human eyes could not properly see, creating an effect that made it hard to focus on directly. Lisa expected the creature to immediately begin hunting, as every galactic database said it would. Instead, it stopped just outside its cell and seemed to look around with confusion. Its form rippled and changed as it tested the environment, touching the walls and floor with appendages that phased in and out of reality. "It's not attacking," Lisa whispered into her communicator. "Jake, are you seeing this? The creature looks lost." Captain Jake Sullivan's voice came back calm and steady. "I see it. Keep watching and tell me what you observe. Danny and Pete are monitoring from the command center." The Void Stalker moved down the corridor, but not in the aggressive hunting pattern that the galactic files described. It moved hesitantly, stopping every few feet to test the air and surfaces around it. When it reached a junction in the hallway, it paused for a long time, as if trying to decide which way to go. Lisa pulled up the environmental readings on her tablet. The station's atmosphere was standard oxygen-nitrogen mix with normal gravity and temperature. But the Void Stalker had come from the dark matter nebulae, where space itself was different. No wonder it seemed confused. "Amy, can you adjust the environmental controls in Section 7? Lisa asked through her communicator. "Lower the temperature, reduce the light, and see if you can create some electromagnetic fluctuations similar to what we recorded in the dark matter regions." Amy Foster's voice responded immediately. "Working on it now. Give me 2 minutes." The Void Stalker had found the body of a maintenance robot that had been damaged in the power failure. Instead of destroying it further, the creature examined it carefully with its shifting appendages. Lisa watched in fascination as the creature seemed to recognize that the robot was not alive, then moved on without harming it. "This is incredible," Lisa murmured. "It's not a mindless killing machine, it's intelligent and it's trying to understand its environment." The creature continued moving through the station, and Lisa followed at a safe distance, using the security cameras to track its progress. Every time the Void Stalker encountered something new, it would stop and examine it carefully. When it found a window showing the stars outside, it pressed against the glass for several minutes, its form becoming more agitated. Pete Harrison's voice came through the communicator. "I've got those environmental changes ready in Section 7. Temperature down to near freezing, lights dimmed to almost nothing, and I'm running a pattern of electromagnetic pulses that should feel like home to our friend. Lisa watched as the Void Stalker suddenly stopped moving. Its head turned toward Section 7 even though it was several corridors away. The creature had somehow sensed the environmental change immediately. It knows, Lisa said. It can sense the dark matter simulation from here. The creature began, moving with purpose now, heading directly toward Section 7 through the shortest possible route. But as it moved, Lisa noticed something else. The Void Stalker was being careful not to damage the station's structure. When it needed to pass through a wall, it phased through instead of tearing it apart. When it encountered delicate equipment, it moved around it. "Jake, I think this creature is actually trying not to hurt anything," Lisa reported. "Every action it's taken has been defensive or exploratory. It hasn't destroyed anything it didn't have to." In the command center, Jake Sullivan was coordinating with his team while monitoring the creature's progress. The escaped Shadow Wraith and Crystal Hunter were still moving through other parts of the station, but they were also behaving much more peacefully than expected. The Wraith had found an airlock and was trying to figure out how to open it, wanting to return to space. The Crystal Hunter had stopped destroying walls and was instead tapping on them as if trying to communicate. "Lisa's right," Danny Rodriguez reported from the security station. "None of these creatures are acting like the files said they would. They're all just trying to get back to where they belong." The Void Stalker reached Section 7 and immediately moved to the area where Pete had created the dark matter simulation. When it entered the modified environment, its form stabilized for the first time since breaking free. It became more solid, more real, and Lisa could see that it was actually quite beautiful in its own alien way. Amy Foster had been monitoring the electromagnetic patterns that the creature generated. "Lisa, I'm picking up structured signals from the Void Stalker. I think it might be trying to communicate." Lisa checked Amy's readings and felt her excitement grow. The signals were complex and organized, definitely not random. "Can you try responding with similar patterns? Start simple, maybe just echo what it sends." For the next hour, Amy worked on establishing basic communication with the Void Stalker, while Lisa observed its behavior in the simulated dark matter environment. The creature seemed much calmer now, moving in smooth, flowing patterns that looked almost like a dance. Meanwhile, the escaped ships carrying the alien crew members were maintaining their distance but monitoring the situation. Their communications were filled with disbelief and fear. How were the humans still alive? Why wasn't the station being torn apart? Every model and prediction said that this should have been a catastrophe by now. The Zephyrian Science Council sent urgent messages demanding explanations. The crystalline entities calculated and recalculated the probability of human survival, getting results that made no sense according to their understanding of Void Stalker behavior. The plasma beings simply assumed that all the humans were already dead, and the creatures were playing with their bodies. But inside the station, Lisa Martinez was beginning to understand something that no one in the galaxy had ever realized. The Void Stalkers were not perfect predators driven by an instinct to kill. They were highly intelligent beings from a very different environment who had been reacting to what they saw as threats and hostile conditions. "Jake," Lisa said as she watched the creature respond to Amy's communication attempts, "I think we've been looking at this all wrong. The Void Stalker isn't a monster. It's just an alien trying to get home." Captain Sullivan smiled as he watched the monitors. "Then let's help it find its way back where it belongs. But first, let's show our galactic neighbors that there's more than one way to deal with dangerous situations." The creature had stopped its restless movement and was now floating peacefully in the center of the dark matter simulation field. For the first time in months, the galaxy's most feared predator looked content, and the humans who had refused to panic were about to change everything the galaxy thought it knew about dealing with dangerous creatures. Dr. Lisa Martinez walked down the long metal hallway of the Galactic Research Station Kepler 7, her footsteps echoing in the quiet morning shift. The station floated in space above a dead planet, far from any inhabited worlds for good reason. This place held the most dangerous creatures that the galaxy had ever seen, locked away in special cells that could contain almost anything. Lisa stopped at the first viewing window and looked inside. A shadow wraith from Vega Prime moved like black smoke inside its containment field. The creature had destroyed 3 colonies before the Galactic Council captured it. The wraith could slip through solid walls and drain the life from any living thing it touched. Even now, looking at it through thick protective glass, Lisa felt a small chill run down her spine. She moved to the next window. Inside this cell, a crystal hunter from the Andromeda Belt sat perfectly still. Its body looked like living diamond, beautiful and deadly. These creatures could cut through starship hulls with their razor-sharp limbs and move faster than most eyes could follow. The crystalline entities who first discovered them had lost an entire research fleet before they learned how to capture just one. Lisa checked her tablet and made notes about each specimen. As the station's lead xenobiologist, she studied these creatures to understand how they worked. The other scientists on the station found her work fascinating but terrifying. Most of them preferred to study the creatures from a safe distance using robots and remote sensors. The hallway curved ahead, leading to the most secure section of the station. Lisa's steps slowed as she approached the final containment cell. Even the other dangerous creatures seemed calm compared to what lived in this room. The door was marked with warnings in dozens of alien languages, all saying the same thing. Do not approach without full security clearance. Lisa pressed her hand against the scanner and waited. The heavy door slid open with a soft hiss, revealing a chamber within a chamber. The inner cell was surrounded by 3 separate containment fields, each one strong enough to hold a battleship. Inside those fields was Subject Omega-9, the Void Stalker. The creature was hard to look at directly. It seemed to be made of living darkness, with parts of its body fading in and out of reality. Its form shifted constantly, sometimes looking like a giant spider, other times like a wolf made of shadow. Sharp appendages that looked like claws or teeth appeared and disappeared along its body. The creature moved in ways that hurt to watch, as if it existed in more dimensions than the human eye could see. Lisa had been studying the Void Stalker for 3 months now, ever since the Deep Space Patrol had found it drifting in the dark matter nebulae near the galaxy's edge. The patrol ship had barely escaped after their first encounter. The creature had torn through their hull like paper and killed half the crew, before they managed to activate an experimental stasis field that froze it in place. Every species in the galaxy feared the Void Stalkers. They were perfect predators, able to hunt across multiple dimensions and phase through any known material. Their psychic abilities could paralyze most intelligent life forms with terror. The Galactic Council had classified them as a galaxy-ending threat, creatures so dangerous that even one free individual could destroy entire star systems. Lisa looked at her notes from previous observations. The creature never seemed to sleep or eat. It just moved around its cell in patterns that made no sense to anyone who studied them. Sometimes it would press against the containment fields as if testing their strength. Other times it would sit perfectly still for hours as if listening to something no one else could hear. The station's intercom crackled to life. Dr. Martinez, please report to the command center. We have some visitors from the Science Council who want to discuss the Omega-9 project. Lisa sighed and took one last look at the Void Stalker. The creature turned toward her, and for a moment she could swear it was looking directly at her through all the barriers between them. She felt no fear, only curiosity. What was this thing thinking? Was it thinking at all? Or was it just an animal following its instincts? She made her way to the command center, where Captain Jake Sullivan was talking with 3 alien representatives. There was a Zephyrian, whose blue energy body flickered nervously in its containment suit. Next to it stood a crystalline entity, its diamond-like form catching the light from the room's displays. The third visitor was a plasma being, floating in a special environmental tank that let it maintain its shape. Ah, Dr. Martinez, Captain Sullivan said when he saw her enter. These representatives want to discuss moving the Void Stalker to a more secure facility. They're concerned about keeping it here. The Zephyrian spoke first, its voice coming through a translation device. The creature is too dangerous to study. Every day it remains here increases the risk of a containment failure. We should dispose of it immediately. The crystalline entity agreed. My people have run calculations. The probability of successful containment drops by 0.03% each day. Within 2 years, the chance of escape becomes unacceptable. Lisa looked at Captain Sullivan, then at the alien representatives. The creature hasn't shown any signs of trying to escape. Its behavior patterns are actually quite stable. The plasma being's form churned with what Lisa had learned was anxiety. Stable behavior means nothing with a void stalker. They are cunning beyond measure. It may be planning something we cannot detect. Captain Sullivan nodded thoughtfully. We've had no incidents in 3 months. The containment systems are working perfectly. As they discussed the creature's fate, none of them noticed the small warning light that had just begun blinking on the power distribution panel. A cascade failure was beginning in the station's main power grid, and in a few hours it would reach the containment systems. The galaxy's most feared predator was about to break free, and only the humans on the station would remain calm when everything went wrong. The warning alarm started just after midnight station time. Lisa Martinez woke up in her quarters as red lights flashed and the emergency siren wailed through the corridors. She grabbed her tablet and checked the station status. Multiple power failures were spreading through the main grid like a virus, shutting down systems one by one. She ran to the command center, where Captain Jake Sullivan was already coordinating with the engineering teams. The main display showed a cascade failure moving through the power distribution network. What had started as a small overload in the recreational section was now affecting critical systems throughout the station. How bad is it? Lisa asked, pulling up the containment system status on her tablet. Bad, Jake replied, his voice calm but serious. We're losing power to non-essential systems first, but if this keeps spreading, it'll hit the containment fields within the hour. Around them, the alien crew members were reacting with increasing panic. The Zephyrian scientists had already begun flickering in and out of phase, their natural response to extreme stress. Their blue energy forms became harder to see as they prepared to shift into emergency stasis. The crystalline entities were making high-pitched sounds that hurt human ears, their way of communicating extreme danger to each other. Several of them had already started the process of fragmenting their consciousness, splitting into smaller pieces that could survive independently if the main body was destroyed. The plasma beings were the worst affected. Their forms churned and bubbled with fear as they prepared to dissipate into the station's energy conduits. In their panic, they were actually making the power problems worse by drawing extra energy from the failing grid. All alien personnel to evacuation stations, Jake announced over the intercom. This is not a drill. Prepare for immediate departure. Lisa watched the chaos around her and felt a strange calm settle over her thoughts. Yes, this was dangerous, but panic would not help anyone. She pulled up the detailed schematics of the containment systems and began calculating how much time they had before the fields failed. 37 minutes until the first containment field goes down, she told Jake. The Shadow Wraith cell will fail first, then the Crystal Hunter. The Void Stalker's cell has triple redundancy, so it should last about 20 minutes longer. Jake nodded and turned to his human crew. Danny, get security teams to all the dangerous containment areas. Pete, see if you can reroute power from the non-essential systems to buy us more time. Amy, start broadcasting evacuation warnings to any ships in the area. Security Chief Danny Rodriguez was already suiting up in protective gear. What's the plan if they get out? We contain them as best we can and try to get them back into secure areas, Jake said. These creatures aren't evil, they're just dangerous. Most of them will probably be as confused as we are. The alien representatives from earlier had returned to their ship and were now broadcasting urgent warnings to the Galactic Council. Lisa could hear their translated voices over the communication channels, describing the situation as a potential catastrophe that could spread beyond the station. Amy Foster worked at the communication station, her fingers moving quickly over the controls. I'm getting response signals from several rescue ships, but they're all staying at least 10 light hours away. None of them want to come close if the Void Stalker gets loose. Lisa studied the behavioral data she had collected on all the creatures. Jake, I think we're approaching this wrong. Everyone sees these as monsters that will immediately start killing everything in sight. But look at their behavior patterns. They're all from very specific environments. If they escape, they're going to be just as lost and scared as we are. The first containment field failed right on schedule. The Shadow Wraith from Vega Prime flowed out of its cell like black smoke, moving through the corridors in what looked like random patterns. The alien crew members who saw it on the security monitors immediately went into full panic mode. It's hunting, the Zephyrian scientist gasped, his form flickering rapidly. They always hunt when freed. It will drain the life from everything on this station. But Lisa watched the creature's movement and saw something different. The Wraith wasn't hunting at all. It was searching. It moved from room to room, touching surfaces and then moving on, as if looking for something specific. The creature was trying to find a way back to the cold vacuum of space where it belonged. 10 minutes later, the crystal hunter broke free. Unlike the wraith, this creature moved with purpose toward the outer hull of the station. It began cutting through walls with its razor-sharp limbs, but not randomly. It was carving a path toward the sections of the station that faced the Andromeda Belt, where its home was. "They're not attacking," Lisa said, showing Jake the security footage. "They're trying to go home. The wraith wants the cold emptiness of space. The crystal hunter wants to return to the asteroid fields where it was captured." Jake studied the monitors and nodded slowly. "You're right. But tell that to our alien friends. The evacuation pods were launching now, carrying the panic-stricken alien crew members away from the station. Their ships sent automated messages warning everyone to stay away from the area." Within minutes, news of the containment failure was spreading through the galactic communication networks. "Voidstalker containment failure at Kepler 7, the emergency broadcasts announced. All ships maintain minimum distance of 50 light hours. Galaxy-ending threat confirmed active." But inside the station, the human crew continued working. Pete Harrison had managed to reroute enough power to slow the cascade failure. Danny Rodriguez was tracking the escaped creatures, not to hunt them, but to predict where they would go next. Amy Foster was monitoring their communications, looking for patterns that might help establish contact. Then the final alarm sounded. The triple containment fields around the Voidstalker's cell were failing one by one. The creature that the entire galaxy feared above all others was about to break free, and the only people left to deal with it were a handful of humans who refused to panic. Lisa looked at the timer counting down on her screen. 3 minutes until the last field failed. Around the galaxy, entire fleets were already changing course to avoid this sector of space. Emergency protocols were being activated on 1,000 worlds. Everyone expected the worst. But Lisa Martinez just checked her notes one more time and prepared to meet the galaxy's most feared predator, with nothing but human curiosity and the belief that every creature, no matter how dangerous, was just trying to survive in its own way. 3 weeks after the containment failure that had terrified the galaxy, the galactic research station Kepler 7 had become the most visited location in known space. Ships from dozens of species arrived daily to witness what many were calling impossible: humans working peacefully alongside the creatures that had once been considered the greatest threats in the universe. Dr. Lisa Martinez stood in the newly constructed habitat dome, watching the Voidstalker move gracefully through an environment that perfectly mimicked its home dimension. The creature had grown more solid and stable as Pete Harrison and his engineering team refined the dark matter simulation fields. What had once looked like a terrifying monster of shadow and claws now appeared as a being of elegant beauty, its form flowing like liquid starlight. "The transport pod is ready," Amy Foster announced over the intercom. "All the dimensional coordinates have been programmed according to the star charts our friend provided." The Voidstalker turned toward Lisa, extending several appendages in what she had learned was a gesture of gratitude and friendship. Through the electromagnetic communication system they had developed, it sent complex patterns that Amy's computers translated into concepts of thanks, respect, and hope. Captain Jake Sullivan entered the habitat dome, followed by a group of alien observers who had finally worked up the courage to see the Voidstalker up close. The Zephyrian scientist flickered nervously in his containment suit, while the crystalline entity's form sparkled with what Lisa now recognized as curiosity rather than fear. "The Galactic Council has approved our new research protocols," Jake announced. "Instead of containment and study from a distance, we're establishing the first interspecies understanding center. Species from across the galaxy will bring their dangerous creature problems here for peaceful resolution." Lisa smiled as she remembered the past few weeks. The Shadow Wraith had been successfully returned to space near its home system, where it immediately rejoined a group of its own kind that had been searching for it. The Crystal Hunter was currently working with crystalline entity engineers to design better mining equipment, its natural abilities proving invaluable for safe resource extraction. Danny Rodriguez had become the station's new director of creature relations, developing protocols for first contact with dangerous species that emphasized understanding over containment. His security teams now carried environmental scanners and communication equipment instead of weapons. "We've received 17 requests for assistance this week alone," Danny reported. There's a pack of dimensional wolves that appeared near the Andromeda colonies, a group of plasma dragons causing problems in the Outer Rim, and something the Vegan system is calling the Living Storm that's been disrupting their weather patterns. The Void Stalker moved closer to the group, its form stabilizing as it focused on the conversation. Through Amy's translation system, it sent a pattern that meant curiosity and desire to help. "Our friend here wants to assist with some of these cases," Amy translated. "Apparently, Void Stalkers are natural mediators between different dimensional species. It says its people would be willing to establish a permanent embassy here." The Zephyrian observer's energy form flickered with amazement. An embassy of Void Stalkers. 6 months ago, we would have called that the end of galactic civilization. Lisa laughed softly. 6 months ago, we thought they were mindless killing machines. Now we know they're actually highly advanced beings with their own culture, science, and philosophy. We've learned more about interdimensional physics from this one individual than our entire research network discovered in the past century. The crystalline entity spoke through its translator. "My people are already redesigning our threat assessment protocols based on your methods. We are calling it the human approach. Understanding before judgment, communication before containment." Pete Harrison's voice came through the intercom from the engineering section. "The transport pod is fully charged and ready for dimensional shift. Our passenger can leave whenever it's ready." The Void Stalker turned toward the exit, but then stopped and looked back at Lisa. Through the communication system, it sent a complex message that took Amy's computer several minutes to fully translate. "It's saying goodbye, but also thank you," Amy reported, her voice filled with emotion. "It wants us to know that its people will remember what we did here, and it's asking if we would be willing to visit its home dimension someday as honored guests." Lisa walked with the Void Stalker to the transport pod, followed by the growing crowd of alien observers who wanted to witness this historic moment. The creature that had once been the galaxy's greatest fear was voluntarily entering a transport pod, trusting the humans who had shown it kindness to send it safely home. As the Void Stalker settled into the specially designed pod, it sent one final message through the communication system. Amy's translation came through clearly. "Tell others that not all shadows bring darkness. Some bring understanding between the light of different worlds." Jake activated the transport system, and the pod disappeared in a flash of dimensional energy, carrying the Void Stalker back to its home in the dark matter nebulae. The alien observers watched in silent amazement as the galaxy's most feared predator simply went home, trusting the humans who had refused to see it as a monster. Within hours, the news had spread throughout the galaxy. The human approach was being discussed in the halls of the Galactic Council, in university lecture halls, and in the planning rooms of military fleets. Species that had been at war with dangerous creatures for generations began requesting human assistance in finding peaceful solutions. Lisa received a message from Earth, congratulating her on the breakthrough, but also requesting that she remain at Kepler 7 to head the new Interspecies Understanding Center. Similar requests came from dozens of other worlds, all wanting to learn how humans had accomplished what everyone else thought was impossible. "I think we've started something big," Jake said as they watched the alien ships that now approached the station with curiosity instead of fear. Lisa nodded, looking at the stars where the Void Stalker was hopefully reuniting with its own people. "We've shown the galaxy that there's always another way to handle dangerous situations. Sometimes the scariest thing in the universe just needs someone willing to listen and understand." The communication system chimed with an incoming message from the edge of the galaxy. Amy's translation revealed it was from the Void Stalker, now safely home among its own kind. The message was simple but profound. "Thank you for teaching us that not all aliens are monsters. We will teach others the same lesson about humans." Captain Jake Sullivan smiled as he looked at his crew, who had changed the galaxy simply by refusing to panic when everyone else did. "I have a feeling this is just the beginning of a much larger conversation between species. And it all started because we chose understanding over fear." The Galactic Research Station Kepler 7 continued to orbit its dead planet, but it was no longer a prison for dangerous creatures. It had become a bridge between species, a place where the impossible became routine and where the galaxy's greatest threats became its newest teachers. All because a handful of humans had chosen to see monsters as misunderstood beings who just wanted to go home.